The year is 1940. As the world watches in horror, Nazi Germany's blitzkrieg sweeps across Europe. But across the Atlantic, a sinister rumor begins to spread. Hitler has his sights set on America. For decades, this chilling idea has captivated imaginations, fueling countless books, forum debates, and viral social media posts. But how much truth lies behind these whispers of a Nazi invasion plan for the United States? To unravel this mystery, we need to dive deep into declassified files and dusty historical archives. Our story begins not with Hitler, but decades earlier, in the twilight years of Imperial Germany. Between 1897 and 1903, German naval strategists conducted a series of theoretical war games. Their objective? To explore the possibility of launching attacks against the American East Coast. Picture dimly lit rooms filled with stern-faced officers hunched over maps, plotting imaginary assaults on ports like New York, Boston, and Norfolk. These weren't invasion plans in the traditional sense, but rather military what-if exercises. They were designed to test Germany's naval capabilities and identify potential weaknesses in American coastal defenses. But here's where history takes an intriguing turn. When these documents were declassified in the 1970s, they reignited speculation about Nazi invasion plans. Suddenly, the lines between Imperial German naval exercises and Hitler's regime became blurred in the public imagination. It's a classic case of historical telephone, where facts become distorted over time. Let's be clear, there's no concrete evidence that Hitler ever issued an official policy to invade America. The reality is far more nuanced. These early German war games laid the psychological groundwork for later fears. They planted seeds of paranoia that would grow and mutate over the decades, especially as tensions between Germany and the United States escalated. So why do these myths persist? Perhaps it's the allure of alternative history, the what-if scenarios that tantalize our imaginations. Or maybe it speaks to a deeper anxiety, a fear of vulnerability in a world where oceans no longer guarantee safety. As we sift through these declassified documents, we're left with more questions than answers. Were these plans ever truly meant to be implemented? Or were they simply theoretical exercises? How did the confusion between Imperial German and Nazi plans fuel this enduring myth? And here's a question to ponder. Do hypothetical war plans deserve to be feared if they were never meant to be real? The power of these documents lies not in their military significance, but in their ability to shape perceptions and stoke fears across generations. But our story doesn't end here. While these early German war games may have been purely theoretical, Hitler's regime did harbor ambitions that stretched across the Atlantic. As the Third Reich's power grew, so did its technological aspiration, and one of those aspirations would bring the specter of invasion closer to American shores than ever before. In the shadowy world of Nazi weapons development, a bold and terrifying vision was taking shape. Hitler's engineers dreamed of creating a long-range bomber capable of striking the heart of America. This wasn't just idle speculation. It was a concrete goal that consumed vast resources and pushed the limits of 1940s aviation technology. Imagine the tension in those secret laboratories and design bureaus. Brilliant minds working feverishly, driven by a mixture of fear and ambition. Their goal? To create an aircraft that could bridge the vast expanse of the Atlantic, delivering devastation to cities like New York and Washington, D.C. The centerpiece of this audacious plan was the America Bomber Project. German aircraft manufacturers competed to design a plane with the range and payload capacity to threaten the U.S. mainland. Names like the Messerschmitt Me 264 and the Junkers Ju 390 became the stuff of nightmares for Allied intelligence officers. But dreams of transatlantic bombing raids remained just that, dreams. The technical challenges proved insurmountable, even for Germany's vaunted aerospace industry. Fuel consumption, engine reliability, and navigation over such vast distances all posed seemingly unsolvable problems. As the war progressed and Germany's fortunes turned, the America Bomber Project faded into obscurity. Resources were diverted to more pressing needs, and the grand vision of striking America from the air became little more than a footnote in history. Yet the psychological impact of these plans cannot be understated. The mere possibility of German bombers appearing in American skies sent shockwaves through the U.S. military and civilian population alike. It fueled a climate of fear and vigilance that would shape American culture for decades to come. So we're left to wonder, how close did Hitler really come to possessing the tools for a potential invasion? And what does it say about the nature of warfare that the threat alone could have such a profound impact? But while Hitler's bombers never darkened American skies, the Third Reich found other ways to bring the war to US soil. As we peel back the layers of this complex story, we uncover a chilling reality. Nazi Germany did launch real attacks on America, not with invasion fleets or long-range bombers, but through a campaign of sabotage and espionage. In the early hours of June 13, 1942, a German U-boat surfaced off the coast of Long Island. Under cover of darkness, 4 men slipped ashore, carrying explosives and plans for a wave of attacks on American infrastructure. This wasn't an isolated incident. Just days later, another team would land in Florida. These were the opening moves of Operation Pastorius, a daring plan to strike fear into the heart of America. The saboteurs targeted aluminum plants, hydroelectric dams, and railroad bridges, key components of the U.S. war machine. But the operation was doomed from the start. Poor planning, inadequate training, and a stroke of luck for the FBI led to the rapid capture of all 8 saboteurs. Their trial and execution became a propaganda coup for the United States, a demonstration that Nazi agents could not operate with impunity on American soil. Yet Operation Pastorius was just the tip of the iceberg. Throughout the war, German spies and sympathizers worked tirelessly to gather intelligence and disrupt American war efforts. They operated in the shadows, a constant threat that kept counterintelligence agencies on high alert. These real acts of sabotage and espionage, while far from a full-scale invasion, brought the war home to many Americans in a visceral way. They shattered the illusion of safety provided by vast oceans and showed that even the mightiest nations could be vulnerable. As we reflect on this chapter of history, we're left with a final, provocative question. In an age of global conflict, where do the lines between invasion, sabotage, and psychological warfare blur? The Nazi threat to America was real, but it took forms far more insidious than the landing of invasion barges on distant shores. The story of Hitler's invasion plans for America is one of myth and reality intertwined. From theoretical war games to failed bomber projects and real acts of sabotage, it's a tale that reminds us how fear can often be as powerful a weapon as any bomb or bullet. As we close this chapter, remember that history is rarely as simple as it first appears. The next time you hear whispers of secret invasion plans or hidden threats, dig deeper. The truth is often more fascinating and more terrifying than any urban legend. As the world plunged into the chaos of World War II, Hitler's ambitions knew no bounds. By 1942, the Führer's gaze had turned westward, across the vast expanse of the Atlantic. But how could Nazi Germany hope to strike at the heart of America? The answer lay not in a massive invasion fleet, but in a daring plan that would push the limits of aviation technology and strike fear into the hearts of millions. Picture this, a fleet of massive bombers, their wings stretching wider than any aircraft before them, thundering across the skies above New York City. The Empire State Building cast in shadow as swastikas loom overhead. It sounds like something out of a nightmare, or perhaps a Hollywood blockbuster. But for Hitler and his inner circle, this wasn't just a fever dream. It was the America Bomber Project. The concept was as audacious as it was terrifying. German engineers were tasked with creating long-range aircraft capable of flying from Europe to the American mainland, dropping their payloads, and returning home. It was a feat that would push the boundaries of 1940s aviation technology to their absolute limits. 2 primary designs emerged from this race to build a transatlantic bomber. The Junkers Ju-390 was a behemoth, a 6-engine monster evolved from an existing transport plane. Its rival, the Messerschmitt Me 264, was purpose-built for the role, sleek and streamlined despite its massive size. Both aircraft promised to deliver Nazi Germany's message of terror directly to American soil. But where exactly would these bombers launch from? Hitler and his strategists pored over maps, considering options. Taking off from occupied France or Norway would stretch fuel reserves to their absolute limit. A more tantalizing possibility emerged: the Azores. These Portuguese islands, if captured, could serve as the perfect springboard for attacks on the East Coast. Imagine the scene: a secret airfield carved into a volcanic island, shrouded in Atlantic mist. German ground crews scrambled to fuel and arm massive bombers. As pilots received their final briefings, the target, New York City, the very symbol of American power and prosperity. For Hitler, the appeal of the America Bomber went far beyond simple military strategy. This was psychological warfare on a grand scale. The mere sight of Nazi aircraft in American skies would shatter the illusion of safety, proving that no corner of the globe was beyond the Reich's reach. Even a single successful bombing run could deal a devastating blow to American morale. But dreams and reality often collide, especially in the unforgiving realm of wartime engineering. While prototypes of both the Ju-390 and Me-264 did take to the skies for testing, the program faced nearly insurmountable challenges. The sheer amount of fuel required for such long-range missions was staggering, especially as Germany's resources grew increasingly strained. The lack of fighter escort meant these bombers would be vulnerable to Allied interceptors long before reaching their targets. As 1943 wore on, the tide of war turned decisively against Nazi Germany. Resources once allocated to the America Bomber project were diverted to more pressing needs. The dream of bombing New York faded, replaced by the grim reality of a war being lost on multiple fronts. By late 1943, Hitler's grand vision of striking America from the air lay in ruins. Much like the German cities now facing relentless Allied bombing, the America Bomber project was officially abandoned, joining countless other Nazi wonder weapons that promised much but delivered little. But here's a chilling thought to consider. What if the plan had somehow succeeded? What if a lone Ju-390 had appeared in the skies above Manhattan, its bomb bay doors opening? How would the United States have responded to such a brazen attack on its homeland? The psychological impact alone could have been immense, potentially reshaping the course of the war. As we reflect on this failed scheme, it's worth asking ourselves, if Hitler's bombers had reached American shores, how do you think the US would have reacted? Would it have galvanized the war effort even further, or sown panic and discord? While the America Bomber never materialized as a true threat, its very existence in Nazi planning documents reveals the boundless ambition, and often, the detachment from reality, that characterized Hitler's regime. It stands as a stark reminder of how close the world came to an even darker chapter of history. But our story doesn't end here, for while Hitler's bombers never crossed the Atlantic, the Nazi threat to America was far from imaginary. The failure of the air campaign only pushed German planners to consider more insidious methods of attack. If not by air, did Hitler ever manage to reach American soil another way? The answer, as it turns out, is yes. But to uncover that story, we need to dive into the shadowy world of wartime espionage and sabotage, a world where U-boats lurked off American shores and Nazi agents walked the streets of New York and Washington, a world where the front lines of World War II extended far beyond the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. As we peel back the layers of this hidden history, we'll discover that while Hitler's grandiose invasion plans may have been pure fantasy, the Nazi threat to America was all too real. From saboteurs landing on Long Island beaches to spies infiltrating key industries, the Third Reich waged a secret war on US soil that few Americans at the time even realized was happening. So join us as we continue to unravel one of World War II's most fascinating and overlooked chapters. We'll explore how close Germany really came to striking at the heart of America, and the brave men and women who worked tirelessly to thwart these plans. Because sometimes, the most important battles are the ones fought in the shadows, far from the front pages of history books. The story of Hitler's failed America Bomber project serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the often blurry line between military strategy and madness. It's a tale of technological dreams pushed to their limits, of psychological warfare waged across oceans, and of a world teetering on the brink of unimaginable conflict. As we move forward in our exploration of this hidden chapter of World War II, keep this question in mind. How close did America really come to experiencing the horrors of war on its own soil? The answer may surprise you, and it's a story that continues to resonate in our modern world of global tensions and evolving threats. Stay tuned, because the most shocking revelations are yet to come. The documents they tried to hide are about to reveal their darkest secrets. The year is 1942. America is at war, but the fighting feels distant until now. As night falls on the shores of Long Island, a German U-boat surfaces in the darkness. 8 men slip silently onto American soil, their mission shrouded in secrecy. This isn't the start of a full-scale invasion, but something far more insidious. Hitler's grand plan to conquer America. It's a myth that's captivated imaginations for decades. But the truth is far more complex and perhaps more chilling. While no Nazi invasion fleet ever crossed the Atlantic, Germany did strike at the heart of America through covert operations and psychological warfare. Let's dive into the shadows of history and uncover the real story of Hitler's secret plan for America. It's a tale of saboteurs, submarines, and a battle fought not on beaches, but in the minds of a nation. Operation Pastorius was Hitler's daring attempt to bring chaos to American shores. Named after the founder of Germantown, Pennsylvania, this mission aimed to cripple U.S. infrastructure and sow fear among the populace. The plan was audacious: send trained agents to destroy factories, railroads, and bridges, the lifeblood of America's war effort. On June 13, 1942, the first team of Nazi saboteurs landed near Amagansett, New York. Just days later, another group of came ashore near Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. These men weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were German Americans who had returned to the fatherland, now tasked with bringing destruction to their former home. But Hitler's plan had a fatal flaw. Among the saboteurs was George John Dash, a man with conflicted loyalties. Within days of landing, Dash made a decision that would unravel the entire operation. He reached out to the FBI, revealing the details of the mission and the identities of his fellow agents. What followed was a race against time. As Dash spilled secrets in Washington, the other saboteurs spread out across the country, preparing to strike. They carried with them explosives, maps of targets, and American currency, everything needed to blend in and carry out their destructive mission. The FBI, armed with Dash's information, launched a nationwide manhunt. One by one, the remaining saboteurs were tracked down and arrested. By June 27th, just 2 weeks after the first landing, all 8 men were in custody. Hitler's grand plan had crumbled before it could even begin. The swift capture of the saboteurs was a victory for American counterintelligence, but it also revealed how vulnerable the nation's vast coastlines were to infiltration. The ease with which the Nazi agents had slipped into the country sent shockwaves through the government and military. But Operation Pastorius wasn't the only threat lurking off America's shores. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic coast, their periscopes scanning for targets. These silent predators sank hundreds of merchant ships, some within sight of American beaches. The threat was so real that coastal cities implemented blackouts, and beachgoers could sometimes see the flames of torpedoed ships on the horizon. This campaign of terror and destruction had a profound psychological impact. Americans, who had long felt protected by vast oceans, now faced the reality that the enemy could strike close to home. Every strange light at sea, every unfamiliar face in town, became a potential threat. Hitler's true goal wasn't military conquest, it was to shake America's confidence, to make its people feel unsafe in their own homes. By targeting civilian infrastructure and shipping, he hoped to disrupt the U.S. war effort and demoralize the population. The saboteurs of Operation Pastorius faced swift justice. In a highly publicized trial, 6 of the 8 men were sentenced to death and executed in the electric chair. Dash and another agent, who had cooperated, received prison sentences. The message was clear: America would show no mercy to those who threatened its security. But even as the saboteurs met their fate, the psychological war continued. Nazi propaganda broadcasts beamed across the Atlantic, spreading disinformation and stoking fears. German agents sought to infiltrate American society, looking for sympathizers and gathering intelligence. The legacy of these covert operations lingered long after the war. The idea that Nazi spies and saboteurs might be hiding among ordinary Americans fueled paranoia and suspicion. It contributed to a climate of fear that would shape American politics and culture for decades to come. So, why does the myth of a full-scale Nazi invasion of America persist? Perhaps it's because the reality, a shadow war of sabotage and psychological manipulation, is in some ways more unsettling. It's easier to imagine facing an enemy on the battlefield than to confront the idea of hidden threats in our midst. The story of Hitler's secret plan for America is a reminder of the many forms warfare can take. It's a tale of bravery and betrayal, of fear and resilience, and it raises a crucial question. In an age of cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns, are we still fighting the same kind of shadow war today? As we reflect on this chapter of history, we're left to ponder: do sabotage missions and psychological operations count as an invasion? Or are they something even more dangerous? The battlefields of the future may not be marked by troop movements and tank columns, but by the invisible wars waged in our minds and on our screens. The next time you walk along a peaceful American beach, remember the hidden history beneath the sand, the invasion that never came, but the war that was fought in whispers and shadows. Hitler's armies never crossed the Atlantic, but his ideas and tactics left a mark that we're still grappling with today. In the end, America's greatest defense wasn't just its military might, but the vigilance and unity of its people. As we face new challenges in a changing world, that lesson remains as relevant as ever. The front lines of freedom are everywhere and each of us stands guard.